Hi, welcome to World Unknown. Today we are going to explain tips and facts about
Massachusetts.
Come on, let's get started.
Massachusetts is the 15th most populous and the 44th most extensive of the 50 states of the United States. It lies in the New England region of the northeastern United States. The state attained statehood on February 6, 1788, becoming the sixth state to join the Union. Its 5 bordering states are Connecticut, New Hampshire, New York, Rhode Island, and Vermont. Massachusetts, nicknamed Bay State, Colony State, Old Colony, Taxachusetts, the Spirit of America, has 14 counties. The state's capital is Boston. The postal abbreviation for Massachusetts is MA. Did you know that the first post office in America opened in Boston in 1639? On March 10, 1876, it was here in Boston that the first telephone call was made when Alexander Graham Bell summoned his lab assistant, Thomas A. Watson. On the phone, he said, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." Watson was in the next room where he heard the message from the receiver. In a letter to his father, he wrote, "The day is coming when telegraph wires will be laid on to houses just like water or gas, and friends will converse with each other without leaving home." Did you know that the Postmaster General gets a base salary of $276,840, which is more than the salary of the Vice President of the U.S.? Megan Brennan, the first woman in history to hold the job, as a result, earns more than the salary of the Vice President of the United States, $243,500. Interestingly, Benjamin Franklin was the first Postmaster General of the United States of America. Massachusetts has one of the lowest divorce rates among the U.S. states. Nevada has the highest divorce rate of any state. Did you know that the first subway in America was built in Boston, Massachusetts in 1897? Known as the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority Subway, it currently runs 78 miles long and has over 130 stations in the metro area. Thanks in large part to the robust subway system in the city, Boston has more pedestrian commuters than any other major city in the United States. Massachusetts and Missouri were the first states to require a driver's license in 1903. The very first license plate issued by a state government, number 1, was issued on September 1, 1903, to Frederick Tudor of Brookline. The first college for higher education was Harvard University, founded in Massachusetts in 1636. Also, the oldest school in America, called Boston Latin, was established in Boston in 1635, a year before Harvard University. Did you know that the first lighthouse built in the United States was Boston Light, located on Little Brewster Island in Boston, Massachusetts? Boston Common is the oldest public park in the United States of America. Officially opening in 1634, the 50 acres of land as a common gathering place throughout the year. Due to its history, it has been home to a British camp before the American Revolutionary War, and a modern gathering place for speeches, protests, outdoor concerts and more. Did you know that James Naismith invented basketball in 1891 at the International YMCA Training School in Springfield, Massachusetts? Naismith was a physical education teacher and wanted to engage his students in some physical activity while being indoors during the cold winter months. The game was played with a soccer ball and 2 peach baskets nailed to railings 10 feet above the floor. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar are some of the world-famous basketball players of all times. Dunkin' Donuts opened its first franchise restaurant in Dedham, Massachusetts, and sold 52 varieties of donuts. The popularity of the donuts grew so much that the company by the year 1963 had opened its 100th restaurant. Furthermore, the game of volleyball finds its roots in Massachusetts as well. The game of volleyball, originally called mintonette, was invented in 1895 by William G. Morgan. Plymouth, located just south of modern-day Boston, was one of the first permanent English settlements in North America. The state was one of the original 13 colonies that formed the United States of America. The chocolate chip cookie was invented by Ruth Graves Wakefield and her husband in 1930 in the Toll House restaurant in Whitman, Massachusetts. The Fig Newton cookies were named after the town of Newton, Massachusetts. Massachusetts, Kentucky, Virginia, and Pennsylvania are the 4 U.S. states whose legal names include the term Commonwealth. However, these states function just like the other 46 states. According to a survey, Massachusetts is the most educated state in the country, because the state has a number of high-ranking state colleges and universities. In 2003, by court orders, Massachusetts became the first state in the country to legalize gay marriage. Connecticut followed suit, but in 2008, the state was named by an English explorer and colonist John Smith after the Massachusetts tribe, whose name meant near the Great Hill. Did you know that a beach near Boston is popularly called Singing Beach? Do not get too carried away with the fact. The sound comes when a visitor shuffles their feet on its dry sand. It is illegal in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to scare a pigeon. Did you know that celebrating Christmas was banned in Massachusetts? In 1659, the General Court of the Massachusetts Bay Colony made it a criminal offense to publicly celebrate the holiday. In 1856, however, Christmas finally became a public holiday in the state. Stopping for red lights is not required by law unless they are flashing. As of 1st January 2019, the minimum wage per hour in Massachusetts is $12. The Ted Williams Tunnel interface in East Boston between the land-based approach and the underwater section is 90 feet below the surface of Boston Harbor, the deepest such connection in North America. Engineers were forced to make this tunnel so deep because of the depth of the Boston Harbor. They used the cut and cover method to construct it. The tunnel is a 1.6 mile long and dips to close to 100 feet below sea level. First opening for public use in 2003, it was one of the first major links constructed as part of the Big Dig. A toll is charged when entering the tunnel from either side. It was here in Massachusetts that the process of vulcanization was invented by Charles Goodyear in a factory in Woburn where he lived. He accidentally combined rubber and sulfur upon a hot stove. Much to Goodyear's surprise, the rubber didn't melt. And, when he raised the heat, it actually hardened. Boston, Massachusetts is the headquarters of the world's leading brand of safety razors. Gillette Tupperware was invented by Earl Tupper while he was experimenting with plastic. He molded the then new material into containers and started marketing his products as giveaways with cigarettes. The inventor of the World Wide Web, Sir Timothy John Berners-Lee, is currently a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. The Charles Williams Jr. House, located on Arlington Street, Somerville, is the location of the first residential telephone line in the world. The phone inside the house connected to the owner's office 3 miles away at 109 Court Street in Boston. These two properties had the first telephone numbers 1 and 2 of the Bell Telephone Company. Massachusetts revolutionized the frozen fruit industry. Clarence Birdseye developed the first freezer to quick freeze fish and other foods including meat, vegetables, etc. Foods that were frozen quickly as opposed to slow freezing tasted better. Birdseye was issued U.S. Patent number 17773-079 that marked the beginning of the frozen food industry. A range of frozen foods were test marketed in Springfield, Massachusetts, and after a great response from the public, the company continued to sell their frozen food products, and the rest is history. Boston, the state's most populous city, has been the capital of Massachusetts since its founding. Did you know that the first Thanksgiving was held in Massachusetts in the Plymouth colony in 1621? Massachusetts is one of the nation's leading producer of cranberries. To protest the British tea tax, many Bostonians dumped tea from 3 British ships into the sea. The event happened on Boston Harbor and was since then widely known as the Boston Tea Party. In 1826, Massachusetts became home to the first railroad in the U.S. Massachusetts as the birth of American Revolution, where the first resistance against the British colonial rule emerged. The state also gave birth to the birth control pills. Dr. Gregory Pincus developed the pills in the 1959s in the Clark University in Worcester. Springfield, the capital of the state, is its third most populous city. The city is located on Connecticut River's eastern bank. Springfield is often called the Hoop City. Other nicknames of the state's capital Springfield are the City of the Firsts and the City of Homes. Springfield lies at a distance of 24 miles from Hartford, the capital of Connecticut. The Springfield-Hartford region is known as the Knowledge Corridor because of the facts that the region has more than 32 universities and shelters more than 150,000 students. This is the second largest concentration of higher learning institutions in the United States. The country's first subway system was established in Boston in 1897. The route took just 3.5 minutes to travel one way. The area of the capital city of Boston, first founded in 1630, was originally called Shawmut by local Native Americans. It was eventually changed to Boston after the identically named town in Lincolnshire, England, where many of the colonialists who came to the New World originated. Rumors that Fig Newton cookies were named after Sir Isaac Newton are false. The Fig Newton was actually named after the town of Newton, Massachusetts. Located in Cambridge, the company that made the cookies, first called Kennedy Biscuits and later changed to Nabisco, named all of their products after nearby locales, such as the Shrewsbury, the Harvard, and the Beacon Hill. The Newton is the only one that has endured. The late 1800s in Massachusetts were a hotbed of sports history. Basketball was invented by a then 31-year-old Springfield College graduate student named James Naismith in Springfield, Massachusetts, in 1891. Also, volleyball, originally called mintonette, was invented by a YMCA instructor named William G. Morgan in Holyoke, Massachusetts, in 1895. The birth control pill was developed in the 1950s at Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, by Dr. Gregory Pincus. The oldest public park in the U.S. is the Boston Common. Boston citizens originally purchased the area in 1634 for £30 as an area to hold military training exercises and as a place to graze cattle. Whirlwind Eye, the world's first digital computer that operated in real time, was created at MIT in 1951. It was originally conceived as a way to design a flight simulator for the U.S. Navy. The frozen foods industry was revolutionized in Massachusetts in the 1920s and 30s. Inventor and entrepreneur Clarence Birdseye established the General Foods Company, later the General Foods Corporation, in Gloucester, Massachusetts, in 1924. Birdseye had developed the first freezer for commercial purposes as a way to quick freeze fish and other foods, like meats, fruits, and vegetables. A range of 27 frozen food products was eventually test-marketed in Springfield, Massachusetts, in 1930, and was met with such acclaim that the company continued to grow from there, ushering in a whole new era of preserved food consumption. The oldest school in America, called Boston Latin, was established in Boston in 1635, a year before Harvard University, the oldest institution of higher education in the U.S., was established in 1636. The first transatlantic wireless message, originating from the United States, took place in Wellfleet, Massachusetts, on January 18, 1903. Inventor Guglielmo Marconi transmitted a message from President Theodore Roosevelt to England's King Edward VII using Morse code. The first telephone call in history was made between inventor Alexander Graham Bell and his assistant, Thomas Watson, on March 10, 1876, in Boston. Bell spoke the words, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you," into the device, and Watson heard the message from the receiver in the next room. Although his deeds are most famously based in the Midwest, folk hero Johnny Appleseed, born John Chapman, was born in Leominster, Massachusetts. Known colloquially as Webster Lake, the official name for the body of water in the town of Webster, Massachusetts, is Lake Chargagagagmanchagagagchaubunagungamog. The name of the lake, loosely translated from an Algonquian word meaning Nquat, English knifemen and Nipmuc Indians at the boundary or neutral fishing place, Nquat, is the fifth longest word in the world and the longest name of any lake in the world according to the Guinness Book of Records. The state dog of Massachusetts is, appropriately enough, the Boston Terrier, which in 1869 was the first purebred dog developed in the United States. The chocolate chip cookie was invented in Whitman, Massachusetts, in 1938 by a woman named Ruth Wakefield. One night, at the restaurant she and her husband Kenneth owned called the Toll House Inn, Ruth threw in some semi-sweet chocolate pieces to her cookie recipe. The delectable treats, originally called Toll House Crunch cookies, caught on locally, but grew in popularity once the recipe was printed in a Boston newspaper. Boston is one of the most vibrant cities in the United States. Boston is worldwide as an academic city. Proof of this is that the Mather School of Boston was the first public school in the United States. In keeping with its academic tradition, the city of Boston is home to the first American university, the famous Harvard University, founded in 1636 and named after cleric John Harvard, its first benefactor. Did you know that the Boston subway carries an average of 1.3 million passengers a day? It is also the first U.S. subway, inaugurated in September 1897. Boston is a pioneer city. Another example of this is that Boston Common is the first public park in the United States. It was founded in 1634, and history tells that each home in the Boston colony paid 6 shillings to William Blackstone, the first European settler to settle in the city, to create the park. Over the years, the capital of Massachusetts has been recognized with several names, the most popular being Beantown, the hub of the universe, the cradle of liberty, the cradle of modern America, the Athens of America, and the walking city. Native Americans were the first to inhabit Boston, and before the city was named as we know it today, it was known as the Shawmut Peninsula. Boston was founded on September 7, 1630, by Puritans from England, known as the Patriarchal Pilgrims. A tip for food lovers. In the city of Boston there are more than 850 restaurants, and surprisingly only 40 of the 850 serve fast food. You're wondering which was the first library in North America? The answer is the Boston Public Library, opened in 1848. Boston University Bridge, known as the BU Bridge, is one of the few places in the world where at the same time a boat can navigate under a train passing underneath a car. Did you know that about 13% of Boston residents prefer to move around the city on foot, having one of the highest percentages of pedestrians in major U.S. cities? In Boston public schools, half the students speak a language other than English. The capital of Massachusetts is home to the first chocolate factory in the United States. It was built in Boston's Lower Mills District. World-renowned personalities such as Barack Obama, John F. Kennedy, Natalie Portman, Matt Damon, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Conan O'Brien, Tom Morello and Michelle Obama were students at Harvard University. Did you know that the typical dishes of the city are lobster roll, a lobster sandwich, and clam chowder? Guess where the first U.S. newspaper was founded? Yes, in Boston. The capital of Massachusetts was the first American city to have a newspaper with regular publication. The Boston Newsletter was founded in 1704. For 22 years, Christmas was not celebrated in Boston. Between 1659 and 1681, the Puritans residing in Boston decided not to celebrate Christmas as they considered it an immoral holiday. Martin Luther King Jr. studied theology at Boston University. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell presented in Boston the first telephone in history. After Harry Frazee sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees, the Red Sox suffered an 86-year streak without winning the World Series. That losing streak is known as the Bambino Curse. The curse was broken in 2004 when the Red Sox won the World Series. Did you know that the John Hancock Tower has lights that change color depending on the weather? People born in Boston are known as Bostonians. Theodore Seuss, Geisel, Dr. Seuss, Edgar Allan Poe, Uma Thurman, Mark Wahlberg, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, Paul Revere, John F. Kennedy and George H. W. Bush are some of the celebrities who were born in Boston. The largest art theft in history occurred in Boston. 12 paintings from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum valued at $100 million were stolen on March 18, 1990. This is a fact that very few know. The Kennedy family came to Boston from Ireland in 1849. The Boston Marathon is one of the most famous races in the world. Its first edition was in April 1897. It is the oldest in the world, and the participation of women was allowed until 1972. The oldest restaurant in the United States that still runs today is the Union Oyster House of Boston. The restaurant was found in 1826 and since the moment, the restaurant has not stopped working. Did you know that Boston Common Park was a British military camp before the United States War of Independence? Boston's Ted Williams Tunnel is the deepest in North America, nearly 30 meters below the Earth's surface. Fenway Park is the oldest baseball stadium in the major leagues and is still in use today. It was opened in 1912. 31. Mark Twain wrote this. In Boston they ask, how much does he know? In New York, how much is he worth? In Philadelphia, who were his parents?
If you liked this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button. And if you have something to say, please leave a comment. Thanks for watching this video.